The night it began, the ocean looked like it was holding its breath, a dark mirror stretching along the California coast while the moon carved a silver path across the water, and I stood there barefoot in the sand realizing that one reckless sentence from my boss had cracked open a life I'd spent years keeping sealed. I had come to this beach to clear my head after another impossible week at work, but instead, I found myself facing Margaret Hale, the woman who signed my paychecks, her silhouette calm and confident against the tide, and the weight of a bet hanging between us like a dare whispered by fate itself. Before the story pulls you under, take a second right now and show some love to the channel. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that one brave choice can change everything, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe. It helps more than you know, and it keeps stories like this alive. I had always seen Margaret as untouchable, the kind of leader who commanded boardrooms with a glance and never revealed anything personal. She was sharp, respected, and guarded, a widow whose private life was politely ignored by everyone at the firm. I was just Nathan Brooks, a mid-level analyst who worked late, kept his head down, and tried not to notice how lonely success could feel when you were chasing someone else's definition of it. That night, the usual walls were gone. She had challenged me after a tense conversation about risk, about fear, about how I played everything too safe. The bet was simple on the surface, a swim from one marker buoy to another and back under the moonlight, but beneath it lived everything we were both afraid to admit. The water was brutally cold when I dove in, stealing my breath and forcing me to fight panic as much as the current. Every stroke burned, and every wave reminded me how small I was against something vast and uncontrollable. I could hear Margaret behind me at first, powerful and steady, and it surprised me how much that sound mattered. This wasn't about winning anymore. It was about proving to myself that I could step into fear and not drown in it. Halfway out, my muscles screamed, and the temptation to quit wrapped around me like kelp, heavy and persuasive. I thought about my life, the years of playing safe, the promotions earned without joy, the relationships avoided because vulnerability felt like losing control. When I turned at the buoy, the moonlight fractured on the water, and I realized I was alone out there, truly alone in a way I hadn't been since my father died years before. Grief had taught me to build walls, to survive by never asking for more than I could manage. I swam back with everything I had left, lungs on fire, arms numb, heart pounding not just from effort, but from the realization that this night was already changing me. I reached the shore first by a margin that barely mattered, collapsing into the sand, shaking, alive in a way I'd forgotten was possible. Margaret emerged moments later, hair slicked back, breath heavy, eyes brighter than I had ever seen them. There was no triumph in her expression, no resentment. What I saw was relief, like she'd been waiting for something to break the pattern she'd been trapped in. The bet had promised something vague, something dangerous, and when she asked what I wanted, the word surprised both of us. I wanted more, not in the way the world cheapens desire, but more honesty, more courage, more of whatever this strange, forbidden connection was becoming. The days that followed were torture and revelation all at once. At work, we slipped back into our roles, professional and distant, but the air between us hummed with everything unsaid. I struggled with guilt, with fear of crossing lines that existed for a reason. She struggled too. I could see it in the way her confidence wavered when our eyes met, in the extra care she took to maintain boundaries that suddenly felt fragile. The challenge wasn't temptation, it was integrity. We both knew that whatever happened next had to be earned, not stolen in the shadows. What surprised me most was how the swim changed me beyond her. I started speaking up in meetings, taking risks that felt aligned with who I was instead of who I was trying to impress. I stopped measuring my worth by proximity to power. Margaret noticed, and so did others. Opportunities opened that had nothing to do with her influence, and for the first time I believed I deserved them. She, in turn, began delegating more, trusting her team, allowing herself to be human in ways that softened the steel she'd worn since her loss. Weeks later, we found ourselves back at the same beach, not because of a bet, but because we both needed the reminder of who we were becoming. The ocean was calmer that night, the moon gentler, and we walked the shoreline speaking in truths rather than secrets, acknowledging the risks without letting fear make the decisions for us. There was no rush, no reckless crossing of lines, just the slow, steady building of something grounded in respect. Life didn't magically simplify after that. Choices had to be made, conversations held, and sacrifices considered. Margaret eventually stepped into a different role within the company, one that removed the imbalance that had made everything feel forbidden. I accepted a position at another firm not as an escape, but as a declaration that my life was my own. The distance between us became space to grow rather than a wall to hide behind. If this story is starting to reach you, if you feel that quiet ache of wanting more from your own life, stay with it. And please, just before the ending, I have a special request for you. Drop a comment sharing a moment when you chose courage over comfort, even if no one else saw it. Your story might be the spark someone else needs. The last time I swam in that ocean, I wasn't racing anyone. I moved with the tide, trusting my strength, accepting my limits, and understanding that winning isn't always about getting there first. Sometimes it's about daring to begin at all. Margaret stood on the shore watching, not as my boss, not as a symbol of forbidden desire, but as a woman who had faced her own fear and chosen life again. As I walked back onto the sand, dripping and exhausted, the world felt wide open in a way it never had before. Not because of romance alone, but because of the understanding that asking for more doesn't make you greedy, it makes you honest. It means you believe your life can hold depth, connection, and purpose all at once. If this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment now to like the video, share it with someone who might need hope tonight, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement tells us these stories matter, and it helps them reach the people who are waiting to hear them. Sometimes all it takes is one brave night, one cold swim, and one honest desire to change everything.